listeners. Sure. The question, who is Mlungisi Nkosi? First of all, I'm an educator.
Right.
I'm a content creator.
YouTube,
educational,
right?
yes, educational content creator.
Uh-huh.
And now, you know, global award-winning educator. Did I say that? And founder of the Mlungisi Nkosi Maths and Science Center.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And so how was growing up for you? I mean, you didn't just arrive to being this globally acclaimed, educator. How were the principles that, you were raised by growing up, how was it, in the household, family, siblings, and how is it that you came to become this person that we see today?
Well, that's one question that I've never asked.
I know, we go back there because we want to get to know the real person, so that the inspiration really comes from a place of relatability. Because I think all of us have, we have stories that we can tell about our upbringing and our childhood, which contribute to where we are today.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, born in Meadowlands, Soweto, and I was in what we traditionally call a nucleus family, right? Mom, dad, and my older sister, Mono. Shout out if she's listening.
Hello, Mono.
Oh, wait, that's her nickname, by the way.
Oh.
Askis. And then my younger brother, Usihle. So we grew up in Meadowlands, born, bred, and buttered there. But over time, our family, had its own challenges. Eventually, unfortunately, my mom and dad decided to part ways. And, I think that to some extent, caused quite a challenge because all of us were scattered. I went and lived with my grandmother because it was just before, going into matric. And my sister went to live with my mother. Obviously, our dad was not living with us anymore. But, be that as it may, that's the context. And we had to make do with what we had. And that's when I moved to my grandmother's house in Naledi. And so part of my upbringing, initially I had to visit Naledi. But eventually, I ended up living with her on a full-time basis.
I mean, all our childhood or the households we grow up in, they shape and they form who we are later on in life. What would you say are some of the lessons that you learned? I mean, also coming in a household where essentially a broken family where the parents part ways. How do you think that's influenced you and probably made you into becoming the man that you are today?
Look, I really think that there are traces. All of us, first of all, we sinners in need of grace, right? But we are a function of, the background that we form, right? And depending on whatever happened in your context, you navigate life from that perspective, and that becomes your worldview. It shapes your worldview. I think, to be quite honest with you, being in a nucleus family helped me to desire to be in a family, right? I am married now, with 3 daughters.
Wonderful.
But, even in that context, we're still a blended family to some extent. How my upbringing shaped my life, most of it, is that the things that were negative in one's upbringing, you kind of never wanted to repeat, right? But the funny thing about that is that even though you desire not to repeat it, you find yourself, you land in the same cycle, right? Somehow. And that's where we need grace, right? And as a result, growing up now with my grandmother, my grandmother was was an entrepreneur.
Oh, interesting, yeah.
Yeah, that's putting it nicely. Yeah, she sold alcohol.
Okay.
It's more. Yeah,
Right.
but that's the context.
Yes.
I don't remember one day where we went without food. And look, food is food, right? Yeah, it doesn't matter what kind, but the fact of the matter is that
fills the belly.
Yeah, she provided, right? My parents also tried their best to provide, and that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
I think what that has done is that it's shaped the person that I am, in a sense that I want to make sure that I want to help others as much as I possibly can.
Right.
One, I want to make sure that I help others unleash their potential, right? I think that's why I gravitated towards being an educator,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Secondly, I want to make sure that I believe, mwana kwaschaba,
yes.
It takes a village to raise a child.
Indeed.
So at the end of the day, my followers call me the favorite uncle, right?
Yes.
We all family.
Yeah.
We all related to some extent.
Yeah.
So if I can contribute to another child in order to help them in their journey, that's exactly what I'll do.
And so have you always known that you're going to become an educator, or how did you find, yourself in this profession?
All right, so to relate the story, tracing back from high school, I've always thought that I wanted to be a medical doctor. I was kind of okay-ish in maths and science. I was good. I was good.
Right, yeah.
And come grade 11, I used to donate blood, right? And I remember one incident that took place. I was donating blood, and I think as they were trying to obviously extract blood from me, an accident happened, right, where one of the packets just spilled. Sure, man,
was that the end for you?
Like it was so traumatic. It was really so traumatic. And I mean, that incident really showed me that perhaps medicine is not your stuff. And I kind of developed a fear for needles. Okay, confession time. Which I still do.
You might find that most men around the world have a fear of needles. Sharp objects.
Sharp objects, right? Yeah, so I developed a fear for needles. But, what happened as a result, I decided, no, perhaps medicine is not really the route that I wanted to take.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, in grade 12, which is standard 10, back in the days, matric, when I was now, upon finishing high school, I didn't actually do well. I think part of the reason was, the incidences or the situation that was taking place at home and so on. And in a sense, I found myself not being in a good company of friends. And as a result, what happened was I didn't do well in my matric year. And that's the story, right? But I knew that I had potential. I mean, I had been doing well all along. And that's what informed me to say, you know what, look, I just need to go back and do this the right way, rewrite my matric, redo my maths and science. And fortunately, I found an institution that could assist. That's a year later, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I found an institution that could assist, and fast forward to that, I repeated, got my A's, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to study. But I remember talking to a psychologist, and she advised me that with my inclinations, my leanings, my strengths, perhaps engineering would be the best route to take. And worst of all, and worst of all, electronic engineering.
Oh my goodness.
Ron, I hated every minute of that degree. Right, studying there, I really didn't like it. Fortunately, I got a sponsor.
Yes.
So I used to do vacation work as well, right? And I got to be exposed, to different sectors of engineering. I remember I was in the nuclear industry at some point, because the company that was my sponsor at the time had about 9 divisions, right, in it. And I used to rotate within those 9 divisions, and they had different specialities.
Yes.
But fast forward, I remember this was in my 3rd year, because I used to tutor as well when I was at school, when I was at university. And I'm telling you, quite a lot of people used to subscribe, to my program. And even within university, I remember I used to tutor one of the courses, and the learners really love me. But I tell you, to fast forward, what exactly became a pin drop moment for me. I remember this was in my 3rd year. I was sitting, for those of you who know the University of Pretoria, I remember I was sitting at the stairs of the Aula building where graduations take place, graduation ceremonies, right? Looking at the graduation ceremony that was taking place, and in fact, people were taking pictures outside. This is after the ceremony, right? And in a country that is majority black, right? I was sitting there with a picture of just mostly white people graduating. And for me, I think that's when I'd say the call to teaching came into being. I knew I had to do something about that situation. I knew I had to change the narrative. I knew that the picture that I was seeing is not because black people didn't have potential, but they lacked the right kind of mentorship, they lacked the right kind of tuition, right? And that's what informed me that at the end of the day, I just need to go back and make sure that I make a difference to the learners.
That's quite incredible. So I suppose then your deduction was in the faculty that you were in, which was engineering, which obviously you'll need maths and science to get into.
Absolutely.
You were seeing, a plethora of white faces that would obviously eventually end up, in those, technical, areas of work of the economy, which are in fact the areas where there are most opportunities, and that also propel the country's growth and economic growth forward. And so, having done that assessment or had seen that picture, how does the foundation that you now run get born as a way to address some of those issues and bringing black young learners into this field of math, science, technology, engineering?
Just to again, just take you back a little bit. So I started teaching, from my grandmother's back room, right? And that's the thing about being passionate about something. You don't ask about the nitty-gritties. You don't ask about how this is going to be done. You just get things done, right? And I think with the passion, I started growing, and I got a lot of recognition. I started really changing people's lives, and I've got a plethora of stories that I can tell you of people's lives that have been changed by this journey. Fast forward to that, I was now teaching at a school. It was an adult school, right? People that had failed matric, people that had not done well, and so on, who would come for services, right? I really became known as the science guy in Soweto. But fast forward, COVID happened, and that's when my YouTube channel was born. Because I had such a burden. In fact, still driven by the same passion that, there are so many kids who were not able to access education at the time. So I started the YouTube channel, and at the time it was just catering for my learners, but I knew that it would be eventually discovered by others. When I didn't know that it was 100,000 others. In fact, right now almost 200,000, right? That have subscribed, but even way more than that. People that have been helped by the channel. Just not to go on. We actually started the Mlungisi Nkosi Maths and Science Center, where we seek to our aim is exactly that, to help learners to do well, right? In maths and science, our focus still becomes exactly that, STEM, right? We are introducing quite a lot of other offerings as well this year, between grades 8 to 12, right? But as well, those who want to upgrade, and you know, our registrations are open right now. But you know, just to tell you that, you know, for me, the main thing is to make sure that we empower learners, to make sure that we help them towards thriving in these fields. And of course, as you did say, they are a gateway to the economy of this country. And I make sure that, you know, we can actually create the people that are going to run, help our economy develop.
Yeah, the likes of ESCOM.
Absolutely.
It's right.
Talk about
ESCOM. In the, it's right in the thick of that, you know. And I suppose we are in the crisis that we're in, partly because, you know, skill, but also, I mean, the other complex matters there. But I think the contribution, leadership, but a contribution can be made in the way that you are doing it. Just to provide, you know, learners with awareness, make sure that they know that there are other fields. I mean, like you said, most of us, I think, growing up, you know, when you thought about a career, it's, you know, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, the common ones. But there are a lot more other things that, you know, nuclear engineering is an example.
Absolutely.
You know, and so given that awareness, very important, especially in the areas where you are, Soweto, where people are underprivileged, access to information is a challenge. I want to pick, you know, your brain on something that you mentioned. You mentioned that you actually had to go back to repeat, you know, maths and science in matric for you to get your desired results. You're a globally acclaimed maths and science educator. What have you learned about failure? Because, you know, in a way that says, you know, I didn't do so well, I needed to go back and do it better. So
there's a book by John Maxwell called Fail Forward, right? It's an incredible book. If anyone, you know, and first of all, let me say this. I think we need to sensitize everyone in life. At some point or the other, you will fail at something.
Right.
The question is, what is your perspective on failure? How do you overcome failure, right? And I think the one thing that I've learned is that in any situation, you always need to keep a positive mindset, right? That failure shouldn't be a stigma that is attached, that you attach to yourself, to your self-worth. You need to find people.
It is not who you are.
It is not who you are. It's an event that took place in your life. And it's not the be-all and end-all, you know, of your life. And I want to say this even to anyone out there that has used failure as a crutch. You know, to say, I failed in business, I failed in 1, 2, and 3, I failed in my marriage, and therefore they use that as a stigma, you know, something that they attach to themselves. You know, just to tell you, I don't like someone introducing themselves, you know, to me as a divorcee, for instance. Because that's not who you are. That's what happened to you, right? And for even whether you look at it from an academic perspective, you know, there are people who perhaps may have not done well in their studies, and as a result, that kind of limits, you know, what they anticipate from life. I don't want people to use, whenever you fail forward. How can I use failure as a step that is going to help me towards the next point in life? How can I use, and that's the thing, you know, sometimes I think when we fail at something, the problem is that we quickly want to get up, or you quickly want to recover, you quickly want to cover up. But sometimes taking an assessment, you know, just waiting it out a bit, and say, okay, right, what went wrong there, right? And if I can find out what went wrong, rectify it, it can actually unleash the next point in life. You know, it can open the next door in life. So that's exactly how I'd love to, I believe failure should be approached.
Yes, and you mentioned something quite important, because usually when you fail, there's shame that comes with it, and so hence you want to quickly, cover up and return, whereas if you take time to be still, you're probably going to make better decisions around what the next step in the future looks like, as opposed to, wanting to quickly, run to the next thing, and we see that happen in many areas of our lives, relationships, careers, our professions, and so what would you say can help us make the best out of a situation that isn't really good? And I'm looking at also the fact that I think matrics are probably expecting the results now. There's a lot of pressure. Yes, parents, have got high expectations. I don't know if they still publish in the newspapers, but there's that whole hype. So what would you say to someone that is really sitting there anxious about the future, anxious about wanting to have done well, but not sure what that looks like?
I think the first thing that I want to say, perhaps let me gravitate normally towards my learners right now. If any one of them is sitting there and listening to us, right, I want to say to them, first of all, look, life is short, but life can be very long, right? That whatever the outcome of these results, it should never be a determining factor of the quality of life that you will live, right? But that's only if you will use these results in the right way, right? Whatever the outcome is, whether good or bad, right? They shouldn't shape what happens in your life, right? Now, you spoke about shame. Usually, if you get results that you're not anticipating, there's a lot of shame that comes with that, right? I want to say, and I want us to deconstruct this thing called shame.
Right.
What actually is it? For me, it's an empty concept. Think about it. Shame only becomes, alive, or it only becomes real the more you put your mind in it, right? But to be quite honest, it's an empty, it's a vague concept, right? It's like fear, right? It's exactly that. It's just something that is non-existent, but who makes it real?
Yourself.
And that's why the battle is in the mind. When you think about the Bible, if you look at the book of Philippians, right? The Bible tells us about the peace of God that surpasses understanding, which will guard your heart and your mind. That's very important. So even as you approach this time of examinations, right, it's important to guard your heart. Guard your heart. Right now, what should be happening with any learner, they should have had a conversation with the people around them. But I mean, not all of us have the privilege of having family members that we can talk to and can plan our futures with. For those who don't, perhaps, find someone in the community. I did say that it takes a village to raise a child, right? I'm sure there's a father figure somewhere, there's a mother figure somewhere, that you can talk to and say, look, these are my plans. This is what I'm anticipating. And get guidance, right? I think the more informed that we become, the better we can actually make decisions, right? And I think that's what we try to do as well at the center, because we have programs around career guidance and the likes, right? Where we try to equip learners holistically, just to make sure that they can get adequate help. So my point is, with these results that are coming, guard your heart, right? Guard your heart. Okay.
And how would you advise a matriculant who is starting matric this year, looking at the year ahead? What are some of the strategies, techniques, methods that they can use to plan for the year in order for them to get the kind of results they would expect next year, January?
Start early, right? That's number one. Start early, all right? What will help you is not necessarily to wait for your teacher, right? I've been encouraging learners to use, for those that are doing maths and science, to use my YouTube channel, right? Just to get them.
What's your handle, by the way, on YouTube?
Mlungisi.
Nkosi.
Yeah. Okay. So to use my YouTube channel for maths and science, right?
Yes.
Why would they want to do that? To get themselves ahead, right? Because that's what will help them start early. Matric is actually made out of 2 terms. Literally, it's the shortest
year.
Yeah, it's the shortest.
It actually starts in grade 11, doesn't it?
Exactly. That's exactly what it should be. But unfortunately, sometimes you find that there are a lot of gaps that are there, and that's why you kind of need to make up in matric. And I think that's one of the things that we need to change in our country. We always react to situations, right? We always want to do things at the last minute. If you look at programs that are tailor-made, right, they're always mostly centered or focused on matriculates. But I believe the approach should always be, let's always go a step back. The fact that we've got our grade 3s and 4s that cannot read for meaning, I mean that's a big thing, right? Yes. So what are we doing there? How are we equipping educators and the likes? But just to answer your question, for the learners that are in matric this year, start early, right? Number 2, just remember that take charge. Take charge of your studies. Be proactive, right? So in this case, you find learners having to wait and wait for their teachers, or wait, for them to cover a particular topic. Right now, you've got what we call the annual teaching plan, right? That helps you so that you can actually sit with that plan, right? And say, all right, so I know next week we're starting with momentum, right? Let me get myself ahead, right? I can go and watch Uncle Mlu's videos, or, I can read a textbook or whatever the case may be, so that by the time it's covered in class, I actually know I'm well informed about the topic. So it being a two-term year, right? I'd really advise any matriculant, start early, be proactive, work hard, right? Look, I said yesterday, I made a status update. I said you must match your expectations with your work ethic, right? That's exactly that. That you can't have great expectations on the one hand, but on the other you are lazy, right? And unfortunately, one of the things that happens is that we raise our hands and say I receive, but after that, what do you do? And I really believe that any expectation that you have must be matched with your work ethic.
Absolutely. And you mentioned something very, very important, action. And it's 8 o'clock, our time is up. Can you imagine? 30 minutes has gone so quickly. And maybe as we wrap up this conversation, Lou, and thank you, by the way, very much for coming to join us on Kofifi FM 97.2 on the Rhythm of Praise. What would you say is the role of faith? Because faith without actions is dead, isn't it? But what is the role of faith in the journey of education, whether it's from a learner's perspective or from an educator's perspective?
Let's go back to what the Bible says. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. I believe without hope, the Bible tells us that, without hope, any person is as good as dead, right?
If people perish when there's no hope.
So at the end of the day, I just want to make sure, I just want everyone to use that. And remember, life becomes what you make it out to be. And where does it start? In your head.
In your mind,
So faith is the substance. So faith will not make the substance, right? But what faith does is that it makes this real in your mind first before it becomes tangible, right? So I want to say, what the role of faith is in our case is that it makes things that are impossible possible, right? It brings things that are not. Anything that you see as a major development or as a major discovery in life starts as a concept in someone's mind, right? And that's the role of
and
faith.
someone believing that it can become a reality.
Right? Someone believing that it can actually become tangible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the role of faith. And I think that's one of the most powerful tools that God has given in our arsenal. You know?
Great.
Yeah. No,
thank you so much, Mlu, for joining us for this conversation on Kofifi FM. I hope that we can actually, 30 minutes was very short. I hope we can have another conversation with you later on in the year and maybe touch base with you and see how some of your students and learners are doing, and we can see how we can encourage others to continue the journey of their matric here.
Absolutely. And just on my parting shot,
yes,
I just want to say to any learner, as they anticipate the results, they must know that we're here to help.
Yeah.
Right? They can always come through to our offices, which is in Honeydew.
Okay.
If they need help. For those who want to improve even
Mm-hmm.
their results in terms of matrics, our services are available as well.
Where do people get a hold of you? On social media? So your office is in Honeydew on social media?
On social media, info@mlungisinkosi.co.za. That's our email in case they want to inquire.
Mm-hmm.
And on social media and Facebook, Mlungisinkosi, and we've got a center page as well if they want to keep updated with what happens at our center.
Yeah.
It's called Mlungisinkosi Center.
Right.
As on Instagram _Mlungisinkosi, and as well as TikTok.
Okay.
Mlungisinkosi Center.
Yes.
Well.
And of course YouTube, that's where your main
YouTube,
channel is.
that's our main platform. This is where all the lessons are. And by the way, can I mention they are absolutely free.
Oh,
right?
Fantastic.
The entire grade 12, grade 10 to 12 syllabus.
Wow.
Absolutely free, accessible to everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you indeed for being with us. And that's how I bring it to an end of our show for this morning on the Rhythm of Praise on Kofifi FM 97.2. That was a conversation with Mr. Mlungisi Nkosi of the Mlungisi Nkosi Maths and Science Center. So do visit their page, info@mlungisinkosi.co.za.
Yes.
And you can also get them on YouTube, TikTok, and on Instagram. So that's how we bring it to an end. He did ask me to play for him a song that he really wants, and hopefully we can close out with the rehearsal. This one is Jesus is the name, featuring Claire.
Oh yeah.
Have a good day and God bless. Goodbye.
Thank you.